In today's market, first impressions are everything. And no one knows that better than seasoned contractor Glenn Grant. Whether you're prepping to sell or simply looking to increase your home's value, Glenn brings decades of hands-on experience helping homeowners make smart, strategic updates. In this episode, we'll talk about the most impactful improvements, common mistakes to avoid, and how to work with a contractor who understands both the vision and the budget. I'm here today with Glenn Grant. So welcome, Glenn. Thank you so much for being on the Selling with Lori show. I really appreciate it.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, can you just tell us a little bit about you and how you got your start in, especially in contracting, and what type of projects that you want to specialize in or you're specializing in today?
Yeah, so it's been 21 years. I got my real estate license back in 2005, and I started out just flipping homes. Just had a passion for flipping homes, and I started out doing cosmetic flips, and then I got bitten by the construction bug, started doing room additions, because you can drive more value and more profit when you're doing room additions. And you know, I was always a suit and tie guy my whole life, and once I got into construction and I did a 500 square foot room addition, and then I did a 1,000 square foot room addition a few years later, and did several room additions. And once you start doing that, then your next step is, well, I might as well start building homes.
Okay.
And so just my ambition drove me to wanting to figure out home building. I have more of a powerful why factor. My mother died early in my life, and when she died, she was renting. And so that always bothered me, and I wanted to solve the riddle. We all know California real estate is expensive. So I wanted to learn, well, what is the cost of this, structure? What are this 2x4s and the drywall cost? And so my natural curiosity got me into it.
Mm-hmm.
And all these years later, now I'm designing homes and building them from the ground up. So it started with that.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that. So when a homeowner is preparing to sell, what are the top 3 updates you would typically recommend?
Obviously the kitchen, that's the big one. The challenge with the kitchen is it's expensive. My favorite though is decluttering the house, believe it or not, which is not very expensive, and it doesn't have to be very expensive, but just literally getting rid of all of the clutter. Painting walls, very inexpensive, but between paint and decluttering, that can make a huge turnaround in a house. From there, I would probably do bathroom floors.
Okay.
Small bathrooms are much less expensive, obviously, than a kitchen, but people really come into a house, as you know, in real estate, they're coming into the house, they want great kitchens, they want nice bathrooms, but the simple, cheap things are paint and decluttering before getting into the major stuff.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel everybody that's going to be coming into a home is going to have their own vision, how they want their kitchen or how they want their bathroom. But from a contractor's standpoint, but if you're deciding to this is it, this is my forever home, we're going to do it right. All money aside, that's where your specialties comes in, as far as making things not so much a cookie cutter like shape, and it's more based in design on your aesthetic with the homeowner. What is the process like?
Well, from dealing with me as a general contractor, or just in?
Well, yeah. Let's say if somebody's going to come in and they want a revamp on their home. They took some money out of their home equity, right? And they have no intentions of selling it, but they just want a reboot.
Yeah.
Do you handle?
Oh yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
So I've done a lot of remodels. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is knock down walls, open up the floor plan. That's something that doesn't have to cost a fortune. It can make a huge turnaround in a house. Obviously, making sure it's not a load-bearing wall, and you don't have a major disaster. So hiring a general contractor that's licensed is really important. A lot of times people want to cut corners, and that's the danger. You start hiring people that are not licensed. It's amazing when you have a general contractor's license, what we have to do to get a GC license is a lot of work. I mean, background checks, Department of Justice, FBI fingerprints, you can't have criminal record, you have to take these rigorous tests. It's a lot of work, and you have to have a lot of experience. You can't just, not anybody can just walk in and take a GC license or get licensed by the state of California. So there's a lot involved. For me, the process though is just coming in, looking what their budget is, and my favorite thing to do, knocking down walls, remodeling kitchens and remodeling the bathrooms. That's where you're going to get the most value, the most return on investment, but also it's going to make a huge turnaround. And there's other things like landscaping and things like that that are cosmetic, but the main thing is overhaul the kitchen, overhaul the bathrooms, and take down a few walls and really open up the floor plan.
Yeah, I love having a natural flow in the home. It just makes things open, airy, and it just, from one transition to the next, and so it's a nice ebb and flow.
You won't even recognize the house when you tear down some walls, so yeah.
So since you've seen so many homes, what are some of the common mistakes that you see homeowners make when they try to do their own DIY projects, or like what you just said, cut corners on, you know, maybe hiring this handyman guy who's not, you know, licensed and, you know, tries to, you know, do something for them? Yeah,
I think the biggest mistake homeowners make is they forget to realize that when they go to resell that house, there's going to be an inspector, not the city inspector, but there's going to be a home inspection done, of course. And that home inspector is usually a licensed general contractor. So he or she knows what they're doing, and they're going to look at every square inch of that house. And then it's going to be listed in, you know, on the report, and it's going to be a problem. And so when you're cutting corners, it really illuminates itself in that way. And people are trying to save $500 here, $300 there, $1,000 there, but the mistakes usually come out in the inspection. And then somebody looks back and goes, well, we wish we got somebody licensed or somebody that wasn't the low bidder. I think that's the other mistake I see a lot is people are looking for the cheapest way they can get something done, so they pick a low bidder. Half the time they're unlicensed, and then that's where problems come in. So, you know, really that return on investment when you're adding into the house and you're fixing it, you just got to do it right. So it's just cutting the corners on, I see simple stuff, just cutting corners on baseboards or trying to put in cheap floor tiles and things like that, when if you just put in the quality, it will come back to the house and it'll come back in value. Yeah,
and that's why we work with professionals such as yourself, because you know the ins and out of that. And I know the ins and out of that. And I know how crucial it is to have a team behind you if you're trying to sell your home, or even if you're just trying to do an upgrade on your home, you know, if you want to expand it because your family is getting larger. Or what about ADUs on the properties?
Yeah, the county has made very popular, and they've made that pretty easy now. It's actually not that big of a deal. But again, it's so important that you do that because, you know, if there's a structural problem, you know, you could be held liable once you've sold the house. There can easily be structural problems if you're not using somebody that's licensed. And also the other thing that homeowners make the mistake of is everybody worries about failing a building inspection from the city inspector. And actually, it's a blessing in disguise. You want to know that the city building inspector came out, looked at all that work that was done. If there's anything structural, that could kill somebody. So it's super important that we embrace the process of getting the permits and getting the inspections. And even if you fail an inspection, you want to know what your contractor needs to fix. And a lot of times we're working with subcontractors. And we as the general contractor, me as a general contractor, I want to know, is my subcontractor not doing something that we need to fix so that we can pass inspection? So everybody thinks that's a bad thing. It's actually, it's okay. And it happens all the time. You can't pass inspections 100%. You're always going to fail inspections. It's just part of the normal process because there's a million things that I, as a general contractor, need to make happen on that build, and you just can't expect to be passing inspections all the time. So it's quite common that you don't, and that's okay because you want to know what's going on.
Yeah, because that way you can fix it and correct it. And that way you don't have to go back and revisit it.
And not only that, it's the safety issue. You don't want roofs caving in. You don't want other structural issues with a wall. You know, load-bearing stuff. Homeowners that hire a handyman that's not licensed, and if they're taking down a wall that's a load-bearing wall, that could be a disaster, causing thousands of dollars of damage. So yeah, lots of little idiosyncrasies to think about.
So how do you balance making a cost-effective updates while still delivering that wow factor that the buyers love?
Yeah, wow factor is, and again, I'm gonna go back to decluttering, paint. Those are
Okay.
huge things that are super cheap. Having a very clean house can make a huge difference. Literally, if somebody's doing a remodel, like just get everything out of there. If you have to throw it in storage, put it in storage. But it's amazing how many homes. I mean, I've seen millions of homes in 21 years, and it's just the amount of clutter. And if you just decluttered, that would not only free the chaos in the house, but just make the house have a total transition. And then it gets to stuff, when I'm doing custom homes and I'm designing a house, I do wallpaper, because wallpaper is what I call next level. So when you go into a model home from big, huge home builders, and you see their designer model home, the next level design is wallpaper. And so it's not done very often, but when you walk into like a nice hotel and you walk into a nice hotel bathroom, or any mansion in LA, you'll see wallpaper. And it's elegant design, doesn't have to cost very much, but it really is next level. And just simple fixtures. You can just change out fixtures and countertops in bathrooms. It's not very expensive, and you do that with wallpaper, you've completely transitioned that bathroom, and it didn't have to cost you a fortune.
I see.
Yeah, that's one of the cheapest things you can do.
Yeah, that's really great.
It's cool design. I mean, honestly, I did a modern contemporary house a couple years ago that I designed and built, and it was in Arizona, and I drove literally down to Scottsdale a couple of hours just to get the wallpaper, but it made a huge difference because, again, you got to look at the trends. What are the model home designers doing? They do really dynamic wallpaper in their bathrooms, and again, it doesn't have to be super expensive.
Yeah,
so
but it
nice.
also sets your homes apart from the other homes that are generally in the market area, and it sets you more like up here on a pedestal type of thing.
95 out of 100 homes will not have designer wallpaper in their bathrooms, and that's a simple thing to do, but most people don't even think about it.
Yeah, I see. Can you walk us through your process from consultation to completion?
Yeah, usually it's somebody obviously getting a hold of me. I pride myself in my website and having a lot of videos of homes I've designed and I've built. So it's making sure that the homeowner knows, my capabilities, and it's really talking about what they want, staying on budget. I think the biggest challenge when you're a general contractor and you're a builder is timeframes. It's 8 to 14 months if you're building a brand new home. Now we have thousands of people in Southern California that have unfortunately lost their homes, which is very sad. And it's having the right expectation. You just can't build a house in 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that it's an 8 to 14 month process. That's number one. I always counsel my homeowners, do you have a strong marriage, strong partnership? Because you're gonna need it, because there's so many things that are out of all of our control. And when you're building.
Well, cost of goods.
And cost of goods. We've got supply chain issues that we have to worry about. We have cost of goods going up. And then you're dealing, as a general contractor, as a builder, I'm dealing with probably 10 to 18 different subcontractors in the building process. And during a construction, if you're doing ground up construction, it's, upwards of 75 to 100 men that are going to come through that site over a period of a year. So a lot of moving parts. My process is really just simple: to sit down, and also you have to have really good communication with your contractor. And it's like anything. It's success in a marriage is good communication. Success in life is good communication, and that's vital. That's really emblematic of a good housing construction, is that did you have a good communication with your contractor? So that's something I pride myself on, finding out what they want, and then I design and I build, so kind of full service. But it's a relationship, so you got to be synergistic with that person.
Do you have do you like one designing versus building? Like, do you have one or the other that you like to generally go for more?
I like the design process. That's really floor plans are my thing. Modern contemporary. I love that. I love ranch style homes. That's a tough one because I also love the construction process. There's something really neat when you're doing the grading. I call it, you're bringing out the Tonka trucks. You're bringing out all the big earth moving trucks, and that's a fun process. You're bringing in tons and tons of cubic yards of dirt. That's a science in itself and an art form too. So that part is fun. But yeah, pouring the foundations are neat. That's an interesting day when you've got 15 guys on a site and it's 7 o'clock in the morning and all the cement trucks are pulling in and we're pouring the foundation. I use a lot of drone shots to record that, so I have that on my website as well. So I don't know, it's a tough question. I like it both. I like
Okay.
them both, rather. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.